sector. So, without wasting much time, we can have Laolu take the stage. Thank you for your patience once more.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Victor, for the introduction. And again, very honored and humbled to be here. I would love to kick this off by getting a sense of who's all joined the call. I mean, would attendees please just write in maybe their names and what brings them there brings you all here today. Or I'm not sure how if we're okay with folks coming off mute and just saying it. Your name and why today again. I'll be to add in attendance. I see Mojumila coming off turn on the camera. So maybe you go first if you can hear us. Maybe that's not intentional.
Sorry, I'm here. I'm trying to figure out what's going on with my camera, but I don't understand what this camera is on. So I will just talk without the camera. I'm coming here today because the timing works for me. It's 9 California time. And since I've been lobbying for 2-3 years, that you people should shift this time. When I saw this, I was like, oh, okay, I gotta attend. And also, I don't know enough about EVs at all and the viability of EVs in the Nigerian context. So I'm really, really keen to learn more about how you're thinking about things.
Very nice. We'll do some of that. Thank you, Omoju. Who wants to go next? Maybe I'll just call based off how I see this list. Eugene Ohu, would you like to say something?
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Eugene O. Yes, I work at the Lagos Business School. I run an immersive tech lab there. Well, I'm here because I'm interested in the African deep tech community. And I have particular interest also in today's topic because I used an EV for a year outside before selling it off for some reasons, and seeing the uptake in Nigeria is interesting to join a conversation about it. Thank you. Nice to meet everyone.
Thank you, Eugene. So you cut off a bit for me, but yeah. What I heard is that you are seeing the uptake. I'm interested to hear how we're thinking about it. I'll take that.
Yes, that I used it for a year in Pennsylvania before selling it off for some reasons, and then seeing the uptake here makes this a potentially interesting conversation for me as well.
So you're an adopter and then an enthusiast. I like it. Jimmy, you want to go next?
Sure. So I'm actually at the airport waiting to board, but similar to Omoju, this time slot worked relatively better than some of the other time slots that it's been happening. And so I'm glad to be here for this time. And yes, like everybody else, we've seen a lot of EVs in Nigeria recently. I thought it would take us a while before we adopted EVs, but it's quite interesting that the adoption is picking up. I'd like to see how that is going to be sustainable and scalable over time.
Okay, thanks, Jimmy. I'm glad you could join us too. I guess many in the US time zone. Good to know. Kemi. Or not able to talk.
Let me say she's not, she's not able to
talk. I'll read it as you type. Thanks. Mariam.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Okay, my name is Mariam Omar, and I'm a researcher with CTTH, University of Melbourne. So I'm here to, I've been doing some researches on EVs, especially the charging capabilities and all the stuff. So I'm here to hone my skills on that.
Okay. Very nice. Very nice. Very helpful. So you're a researcher on charging, so we could use your expertise, definitely.
Not necessarily on charging, but I just branched. but I'm a digital health
Well,
researcher overall.
okay, digital health researcher, but
Yeah.
also just curious about the space. Thank you. And who I think Omolayo. See that next.
My name is Omola Esham. I'm an embedded system engineer. I'm here to gain more knowledge on the field, just to increase my knowledge base.
Okay, knowledge base. I think we can help with that. And then thank you, Omolayo. Samuel.
Hi, Laolu. Yeah, I'm Sam, and I'm a manufacturer. Yeah, I'm an engineer. Essentially a manufacturing scientist. So
Okay.
I'm here for all things manufacturing and understanding how we can increase capacity for manufacturing EVs in Nigeria. And Africa, like SSA as a whole, and yeah, essentially just to learn about EVs and everything about EVs, as it pertains to the
Understood.
Nigerian
Okay.
market.
Trend scientist. Okay. I like it. Thanks, Sam. Taslim, I don't know if you have your audio activated. With Taslim.
Am I the only one that is stuck for?
No, you're not. I think it's talk for all of us.
Okay. Maybe Taslim isn't able to speak at the moment, but then I also see Kem chat. I mean, just to get a sense of who's on the call and what you're looking to get after this discussion. I am getting flashes that my internet connection is unstable. So please, maybe Victor, you let me know if you can't hear me.
Yeah, sure.
So to kick things off, I think Victor said it right. I'm the managing director and founder at a management consultancy called Leke Services, where we help leaders navigate the mobility energy transition. And what that means in the context of this conversation is the adoption of electric vehicles in Nigeria, what that looks like, and what needs to be true for it to continue to happen. Through the next 30 minutes or so, we'll talk a bit more about what we're seeing, how it's happening, and I'll share some early data points from recent work we've done on ground as to how that adoption is pacing. But really, where I'd like us to, and we can make this a conversation when we get to that point, and as I go through this, feel free to throw questions in the chat or raise your hand, and I'd love to make this as conversational as possible. But we'll talk through how it's happening, the manufacturing kind of outlook for it in Nigeria, the knowledge base that we have and what needs to continue to be true for it to continue to happen. So maybe touch a little bit on what everybody has touched on. I saw Eugene, you said you had a less than pleasant experience with the BZ4X, Toyota's attempt to enter this space, and maybe you can share some lessons there. I think EV adoption in Nigeria is fundamentally different. I'm going to send a request to share screen here, Victor. Let me know if you can make it happen.
Okay, I'm on it.
And Fumi, I missed you.
Yes,
Fumi, why are
ma'am.
you on this call? I know you're here for other reasons. Okay, there are some more people joining. Maybe we can bring them on as we go. But okay, now I can share screen. Hey, Lola Vision Systems, I see you. So jumping right into it. So we've done some work, Leke Services, over the last couple of years around what EVs are looking like. If you can you see the screen okay, Victor?
No, not yet.
Okay, it's still loading. Hey, Taslim, please speak up. I see you have your hand up. Feel free, just feel free to share.
Oh, hello, sorry. I think I missed my Eastern had a bad network.
Please go ahead.
Okay, so I'm a geospatial scientist. I'm here
Okay.
to see how EVs apply to the location intelligence industry. My company, Musat, is focused on big data collection across Nigeria, where we map properties, roads, and everything, location-based information. So I just want to see how it's intersects with the EV space. Thank you.
Very nice. I think I remember you from the roundtable. Were you at the roundtable?
Oh yes, I was sorry.
Yes. I think I remember you from there. Good to hear from you again. So, as we jump in, we've identified the potential for 4 trillion naira opportunity across EVs in Nigeria, and what's really driving that is a few different factors. Falling battery costs. I mean, there was this magical threshold of $100 per kilowatt hour as the threshold beyond which EVs become viable, and this was largely for the Western world. It's falling far below that over the last 3-4 years. I think you can get as cheap as under $40 per kilowatt hour, and this is largely based off this scale and capabilities of Chinese manufacturing in the sector. The second is high fuel costs. I mean, the war in the Strait of Hormuz is the most recent, and the blockage in the Strait of Hormuz is just the most recent reminder, but it's not the origin of fuel cost volatility. I think all Nigerians are very familiar with that, and broader global context is relevant. Transport demand. Urbanization has been a trend for the last 30, 40, 50 years globally, and in Nigeria it's been accelerating. In Africa has been accelerating. And then what this is, and what we mean by transport demand is that the case we made here is that not everybody who needs access to transportation gets that access today in Nigeria, largely because, I mean, there's infrastructure, but also costs. It's expensive. And because of the falling costs, the unit price of a trip in Nigeria has the potential to drop. Will it drop? I think so, because you can then get more volume by moving more people for cheaper. And I think that's the really big unlock. And then that's outside of the sustainability impact, the environmental impact of not burning fossil fuels every time we need to go from point A to B. When we think about this, I'm going to just run through a lot of this material and then show you some numbers and then open up to questions. There are four layers that we've broken up the EV ecosystem into. One is the vehicle supply. Vehicle supply includes. Can you see my screen? Okay, Victor. Oh,
yes.
Presentation. Okay. All right. Vehicle supply includes importation. Most of the vehicles in this sector are brought in from China. By and large, China has an overcapacity problem, meaning that they have more capacity to produce cars than the whole world demands, and they're being blocked from some of the biggest economies in form of the US, and so they are looking for people to give these vehicles to, and so this opens up the opportunity to get vehicles at under very, very, very attractive rates to Africans. And Nigeria being the biggest markets there, being one of their big target points. And so I'm not just talking about the high-end BYDs. I'm talking about some of the kit cars from lesser-known manufacturers, which are still very competent vehicles and offer those economic advantages. So you can get from two-wheelers from under ₦1 million to you can get four-wheelers for in the order of 10 to 30 million naira. And these are fully feature-rich vehicles running completely on electricity. And then you also have vehicles with some sort of different types of hybrids, direct hybrids that we're familiar with from the Toyota Prius, but also newer, more innovative hybrids in the form of extended range EVs, where there's a generator on the vehicle, but that only serves to charge the battery, but doesn't actually power any of the axles, any of the wheels, doesn't turn the motors. The vehicles also extends to local manufacturing. So when folks talking about manufacturing, the federal government has a big push to drive local content. So Another way these Chinese vehicles are coming in is as knockdown kits. So sub assemblies get shipped in, and then you have these assembly sites. I mean, and there are many across the country that then turn these into fully featured vehicles. The federal government has a big push to drive local content, so things that we can make in Nigeria, so we don't have to import all the sub assembly. So you can imagine things like the upholstery or the windows, the glass, things that we have competency to build, and there's increasing push to drive as much as 30% local content into these vehicles to continue to qualify for tax breaks. The advantage of EVs so far in Nigeria is that they enjoy zero import tariffs. This is actually applied equally all the time, not necessarily, but on paper, yes, they do have zero import tariffs. So you get as high as like 60-70% import tariffs on even used cars you get from Europe and North America and other region, Asia, for traditional combustion engines. So that's part of the attraction to the adoption here. Charging becomes one of the critical pieces you have to figure out, given the fact that over 60% of vehicles on the road in Nigeria are used for commercial use or public use. So what that means is that only 40% of the vehicles on the road in Nigeria are for residential, private use. So most vehicles on the road are there for a business purpose. And so what that means is that you cannot get away with some of the theories of electric vehicle adoption, which think through home charging. So you can just build a charger at home. So when you go home and park your car, you plug it in. I mean, in Nigeria, most people are not homeowners. I mean, and this is largely true in a lot of the world, but even more so, the percentage of people that actually own their homes are able to make these upgrades are very little. And so you compile that with the fact that most vehicles on the road are used for commercial use cases. That means we need commercial charging infrastructure. We're starting to see the early stages of that with businesses building their own charge points. And so building the competency of charging, powering the site, whether it's through independent power generation or through the utility, getting the charging equipment. Again, China is a big draw for this, but there are also a lot of competent European manufacturers here. The North America is still catching up. Then actually maintaining these spare parts, keeping these chargers running and reliable when you need them. And charging also encompasses battery swaps. So battery swap is a situation where a lot of two-wheelers, the motorcycles have these where it's like a cartridge. You take the battery out, you take it to a place, they exchange it, and then you can just keep going. And those batteries then have alternative uses where you can use them and take it home and plug in a couple of devices. So they are multi-purpose, multi-use. So keeping this charged is critical, obviously, if you're driving EVs. And I remember seeing, I think maybe it was on the Discord or somewhere else, where the concern is around electricity is not reliable, and they want to come and bring EVs as how we want to move around. So there's this business of running these charge points. And that becomes even more lucrative. The people that have access to reliable electricity then can sell it. So it's a big shift from the history of electricity, in that for the longest time, electricity had to be consumed the minute it's produced. And so that's what has driven the growth of grids globally, in that you have to match the demand to the production capacity, to peak demand to production capacity. Now, with the advent of batteries at such an affordable price point, you can then play some timing arbitrage. You can charge when the sun is out, a battery, and then discharge it when there's no generation. And so that's really what has enabled EVs to take off. And then I'm sure with your imagination, you can think about where else it's going. Fleets at the primary use case, which is why I led with the whole commercial splits versus personal use. Fleets are the big demand driver of this whole ecosystem. The more fleets they are in operation, the more vehicles they are running, the more trips they are running, be it moving people or moving goods. They are the ones that own that demand, and their ability to be able to take advantage of this lower cost, and pass it on to the consumer with more affordable services, more far-reaching services, is how this flywheel keeps running. So going back to some of the questions, I think it was from Jimmy and Omoju, who were saying, okay, how is this actually going to work in Nigeria? It's because of the cost. It's not because of the environment. It's not because it's fancy technology. It's because it's cheaper. The enablers we have as a catch-all for everything else that needs to be true for this industry to survive. So everything from the policy the government stance, the tariffs that I spoke to earlier, to being able to finance this, getting interest rates. If you're a business minded at all, you know that access to finance is one of the critical factors for any surviving business, meaning that you need to be able to get capital at a cost, which is interest, that is cheaper.
Hi, Laolu. We lost you
That is
for
lower
some
than you
minutes.
have to grow in Nigeria right now, bigger than 30%, which is immense. So being able to get access to cheaper financing is critical. And then everything from technicians to people that can builders, contractors, procurement services, spare parts that you need to have in place for this thing to keep thriving. It's critical for this ecosystem to work. So this is what the ecosystem looks like. And for each of these, we've built hypotheses around how it could work. In effort to keep this as a conversation, what I'll do now is share some data points from the work we've done that shows what adoption has been like to date. So bear with me, I'll change presentation. And this is work that we've done for a client that hasn't been released publicly yet. So while I switch slides, I see Omoju's hand is up. Please jump in. And
so my brother lives in Lagos, and the last time I were there, we saw BYD, and we have long truths. So I was like, I want BYD. But my biggest fear was, what happens when it's raining and I'm in Dolphin Estates and there's flood? How is this electric car? That is my biggest question. Like, can it deal with like our Lagos floods?
The short answer is yes. The long answer is yes also, but with a lot of English. So in building a quality vehicle, and that's a good question. I think it's a real concern that many people have, and I think it's the conversations we should be having. In building any vehicle, they have to go through rigorous reliability testing. And part of that rigorous reliability testing is going through water, going through flooding. The advantage of an electric vehicle is that the battery pack, the cells, are sealed in. I mean, these things are built like Fort Knox. We're still living in the early days, so there's a lot of over-engineering to make sure a lot of these safety features are part and parcel of how the technology is rolled out. So you can submerge, these things are like boats. You can submerge it into water, and none of it will seep in. That also goes to the quality of the manufacturer. So once you say a BYD or a GAC or a Geely, these are high-end manufacturers who take quality into high consideration. Same as the Tesla, same as your Toyota. If you know Toyota, they won't release a car that is not reliable. So those things you can go underwater without any issues, any concerns. Once you start going into the cheaper, less validated ones, that's something that you have to mandate as an importer to make sure that, hey, going into a flood-prone environment, are you guys actually testing for this? Show me your certificate, your paperwork that qualifies these vehicles. The engineering, I think there's room for engineering. What I cannot account for is engineering for high humidity environments like Nigeria. So that's something that, as we adopt these vehicles more and more, especially when you think about things like battery swap, that can your motorcycle then go through the same deep waters in a cartridge that's easily removable and pluggable? That's something that you want to make sure you're testing for, or because you have those exposed contact points because of the fact that you can take the thing in and out. So if water seeps into that component, is that something that you should be wary of? Absolutely. So when we start talking about the fleet operations, these are things depending on the vehicle size that you have to take into account. By and large, from reliable manufacturers, you shouldn't be worried about water. But as you know, people would like to start thinking about how to cut corners. If you are developing vehicles for use in more developed environments, say China, say the US, they are not really worried about driving through floods, so they might not test for that. So once you start going with the cheaper manufacturers, and once you start demanding cut costs, and we're starting to even see that on the market today, where not so much on the flood question, but even on the battery capacity question, because the importers are asking for cheaper and cheaper vehicles, the manufacturers are starting to cut corners in the cell capacity, how much energy those are able to retain. And so that is causing issues more around the range and the ability to be able to run your duty cycles. That means how many trips a day can you run on these motorcycles. But as far as the water issue, I think it's nothing to be worried about once you're going with a reliable brand. But great question. Dapo, I see
We
your
have
hands up.
Dapo's, yeah.
Yeah, good evening. Thanks I missed most of the, I just joined a few minutes ago. I was in another meeting.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. Concerning the batteries, I just wanted to ask, are there no technologies, considering the fact that we have batteries in UAVs, underwater vehicles, and then in some of the works we have done, we deployed batteries in very highly humid environments, offshore, where you have water, and the simple solution was we just add desiccants. Desiccants are hygroscopic chemical substances that absorb humidity, and we change that out every quarterly. So I wanted to ask if an extension of those technologies are possible for EVs in Nigeria, operating in the island Leke, where water concerns are. Thank you.
Still here. Can you repeat the end of your question again, please? You cut off right away.
Okay. Yeah, the question is, is there possibility for incorporating such designs, right? Similar mindsets we use for UAVs, underwater vehicles, right? And the precaution we use in high humidity environments. Is this something that could be incorporated in EV vehicles design and building?
Absolutely, and I think that is where the opportunity at this discussion and this group, Africa Deep Tech, I think that's the direction we want to go. Because from the background, you said, just to repeat to make sure that I got what you said correctly, there's already widespread use of batteries in highly humid environments underwater, for example. And one of the ways you mitigate risk there is using desiccants, so absorbents that take any humidity out of the environment and allow the batteries to function as needed. Absolutely brilliant. So right now, water is not an issue. It's a flag that people bring up. Oh, there are floods. Can I drive my EVs through flood? Is electricity? It's a rational thought because electricity and water don't mix. However, any well-built vehicle is perfectly sealed. Their battery packs are perfectly sealed. They act as a boat. So you put them in water, they will float after they've displaced the right amount of any Archimedes principles. People here will understand what I'm trying to go to here. They'll sink as much as they can. But the idea here is if you go cheaper, if you start to cut costs or you start working with less than validated manufacturers, you do run the risk that they are not solving for our environment. I think desiccants make the most sense when we start thinking about the humidity as a problem. So it's something that with enough demand, and I think it's a great segue into the demand forecast I have for the market. With enough demand, people who are importing these vehicles or even starting to build them locally can start to incorporate designs relevant to the market. And so that's where things like desiccants start coming to play. So let me again share screen so I'll show you where I'm going to with this. Today, okay. Victor, are you able to see this now? The screen?
No, yes.
Or is it still loading? It's loading.
Still coming up.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's still loading.
Yeah, it's up.
It has loaded. So this is directional. I'll put a caveat that this was a limited study, so we're able to just create directional data on where the ecosystem is going, where the adoption of EVs in Nigeria is going. As of the start of 2025, there were about 20,000 EVs, electric vehicles on the road in Nigeria. So this is split between two-wheelers, three-wheelers, four-wheelers, heavy duty and light duty. So heavy duty would be like buses and lorries. Light duty would be passenger cars. By the end of 2026, we're expecting close to 50,000 electric vehicles on the road in Nigeria. So on this chart, you see that this is about a 94% annual growth rate when we go all the way to 2030, where we're expecting over 630,000 EVs on the road in Nigeria. Below, you see these ovals, and these ovals they represent what we estimate the share of total vehicles on the road in Nigeria. This means that by the end of 2026, almost 2% of the vehicles on the road in Nigeria will be electric vehicles. It's not a big number in relative scale to the overall vehicles on the road, but the number is big enough to say, okay, we have to start thinking about this systemically. If this projection holds true, by 2030, 15% of the vehicles on the road in Nigeria will be EVs. So what this chart tells me is two things. One, there are not that many vehicles in Nigeria for 200 million people, 200 million plus people. We're saying, again, who can do quick math? 633 times 5, times 6. There are only a few million cars on the road. Contrast that with the most probably overindulgent economy in the US. There are about 2 cars for every 1 person on the road in the United States. And so we don't have to go all the way to that extreme where there'll be 400 million cars on the road in Nigeria, but there's room to grow. I think that's one of the fundamental points I made before, that there's inherent need for more people to move more cheaply in Nigeria. So there's trapped demand. And so if we can move people cheaper, more people will be able to move and produce more for the economy, do more work, be more productive, go to the market, create more goods, help every business and drive demand different ways. To answer your question about the desiccants, because we don't really manufacture vehicles in Nigeria and we're only manufacturing, or we're only demanding 26,000. And so something else to kind of think about this data, and I hope I don't lose you, is that this data is showing total vehicles on the road, not annual sales. So therefore, in 2026, we're expecting only about 20,000 new EV sales. By 2027, we're expecting about 50,000. By 2028, we're expecting about 100,000, hence the 100% annual growth rate. So the demand is growing. At some point, we get to the threshold where it makes financial sense to do design in country. Right now, if you are building, if we're only seeing 20,000 vehicles in the country, and this is across 10, 20, 30 different importers that are importing 100 vehicles at a time, 200 vehicles at a time, they really don't have any negotiating power with the manufacturers to say, go and change this design for me. You have to be making orders in a magnitude of thousands at a time for them to say, okay, this is a market that we actually have to develop solutions for. So to your question earlier about the desiccants, there are 2 choices. One, we wait for the people who are buying these vehicles from in relatively small quantities, because this same manufacturer is selling to somebody 100,000 units. They're putting in 10,000 orders a year. They'll respond to those demands faster than the people that are saying, give me 100 vehicles. There's an opportunity with China, which has the manufacturing capacity, because they have overcapacity. So they need to sell. So anything they can do to make a sale, they'll do it. But there also needs to be a decent financial opportunity for them to say, okay, let me go back and make this adjustment. Desiccants might seem very nominal, but unless you are buying desiccants as a scale that is really relevant, even a couple of cents per vehicle really changes the economics, because there's a whole supply chain that needs to be set up. I think anybody in manufacturing, I think Sam, you're a manufacturing scientist, so I think you appreciate where I'm going to with this. It's really impactful. So part of the work we're doing here at Leke Services is showing that there's demand and there's an economic opportunity. So people with great ideas like this can find a business case to go and make those improvements and say, this EV is actually better for us because of X, Y, and Z. I hope that makes some sense and answers some of that question.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
You're welcome. So part of the point of me putting this page up is to show people that this thing is happening at a scale that is strategically important for the country. So if we're looking at a 12 trillion naira ecosystem by 2030, with this nominal adoption, it makes a business case for people to dedicate capital to this space, for people to say, I want to develop manufacturing solutions that allow this to allow adoption in Nigeria to make more sense, to make people get it. So, for example, I think, was it Eugene that said he drove the BZ4X in the US for 1 year and had rage anxiety? So I was just talking with a few people an hour or so ago. The BZ4X in the US, where people drive 20, 30 miles a day, and then every month or two, they drive 200 miles to go and visit their in-laws or to go and go to one holiday destination. That's a different use case. In Nigeria, people drive 20 kilometers a day on average. People don't travel far. So a BZ4X will be over-engineered. You never get raging anxiety in Lagos, because that's one charge in that vehicle that can go 300 miles or maybe 250 miles. By the time I put that in kilometers, I'm not great at math. Let's call that 500 kilometers. You can drive that thing for 2 weeks before, if you're in Lagos. Obviously, if you're in the north, you're probably driving a little further, but it's still not the range of travel that people in the US or even China expect to drive on a given kind of month or 6 months, where you're going to the rural areas, you're going to the suburbs, you're not just in the city for the most of the part. And again, as we unlock the cost of travel, I think more of these types of trips become feasible in Nigeria. But for now, Nigerians and I dare say a lot of Africa, I hate speaking about Africa because not only Nigeria, me, I sabi, so that's where I can really speak with some experience. Is the trips are not that far. Even if you are going from end to end in Lagos, it's not 50 miles. So I might be wrong there, but I want to just make that point. That being said, there is trapped value. This 12 trillion naira of EV ecosystem value assumes that you are paying whatever for your bus, 2,000, 5,000 for BRT, assumes that you're paying however much, 1,000, 2,000 for a child deck delivery fee. As more and more of those become electric, the people that are running this business are able to keep a lot more profit, which means they're going to deploy a lot more electric vehicles, which means they're going to need a lot more charging, which means they're going to need a lot more repair people, which means they're going to need a lot more power, energized sites, which must be designed for the local economy. It cannot be something that we just bring from outside and plant it here. We have to adjust it to the demands of the grid. And if PHCN cannot supply electricity, then you go to look to solar. If you're not somewhere where there's a lot of land to develop enough power through solar, then you look through whether it's a generator, gas generators or diesel. And people might think diesel is a bad idea because it's dirty and we're going to electric. It's still cleaner and cheaper than putting diesel directly in your engine to be driving up and down. It's cheaper to use diesel to charge a battery. It's cleaner to use diesel to charge a battery. It's not the preferred way to do it, but I just want to make that point since we're talking about this, that is something that has come up a lot. I'll pause there. I mean, I know this was supposed to be an hour, and apologies for the mix-up in the time. Victor, if you want to moderate this some.
All right. Okay. Hi, Laolu. I have a question. I don't know if I can ask.
Please, I mean, now your podcast, I mean, your
All right. So this is from personal experience. You mentioned about how we can capture value as the EV market grows in Nigeria precisely. And one of the specific layers is the charging layer. But what I've noticed is that most of these EV companies actually ship out their vehicle or their mobility system with custom charging capability, meaning that like I'm an embedded systems engineer, so I can actually design and set up an EV charging station for BYD or any other Chinese EV, but it's not going to charge because there are some sort of controls. So how do we work around that area? And it also, we look at manufacturers we are doing. So Wilson, I think Wilson is on this call. Wilson is developing e-bikes for child riders, and he experienced similar things because as a manufacturer, you want to capture value from where you could capture value. So one of the business model is battery swap. And he discovered that there was a time where the riders actually go to Alaba market to buy a charger to charge this battery, thereby bypassing their
They
charging
swap.
or swap booths. Yeah. So they had to like engineer a solution where you can't use any other charger or any other battery on their bike. So you are locked into the system. And the Chinese are actually big on this. So how do we capture a value in that area where we have the manufacturers locking us into the ecosystem?
That's a great question. I think that's a great question. And so what I'm hearing, what I want to make sure I'm hearing correctly is that some of these vehicles mandates charging with a limited set so that you are trapped into their ecosystem to continue using that thing. It's almost like what Apple does. You can't put anything in there if it's not Apple. Otherwise, it doesn't work. I personally don't. I see the value, but I don't necessarily agree with it because it would hamper adoption. I think being able to figure out, because for me, almost naively or in a idealist way, the value here is not to make me so rich, is to give access to travel to so many people. So if people get creative and say, oh, there are ways I can charge this, I think being able to sell them, maybe here's a charging port. For example, if you buy an electric vehicle, you really have three choices to charge it. One is what we call the level 1, which is where you just plug into the outlet in your wall, and that anybody in your house can do. Level 1, very slow. It will take you 2 days to fully charge from empty to full. That's 48 hours or so, even more, depending on how big your battery is. Level 2 is a lot faster. It will take you maybe about 7 hours. That one, someone has to install a charger on your site. Where the industry has evolved is that the charging is separate from the vehicle. So the people that are building the charging, you standardize the ports like a USB-C, but for vehicles, and say this is how you charge if you just bring your power, because it's like a vehicle manufacturer saying, if you don't buy fuel from my fuel station, you won't count for your car. Like, it doesn't make sense because this car needs to go everywhere. So if a charging manufacturer is saying you can only charge using my ports, it's like, are your ports in Maiduguri? If they are not there, does that mean that I should not buy your car? Do you not want to sell vehicles everywhere that you can sell? So I don't necessarily agree with that approach foundationally. So I think what that comes down to, again, is the negotiating leverage. If you are buying this vehicle from these people, I mean, maybe their vehicles are going to come with a port. So that's one of the confusions that's happening now. They're buying from China, they use the GPT port. They are buying from Europe, or most Western manufacturers, they use the CCS. If they're buying from North America, they use the North America port. So there's work to be done there. I think in Nigeria, because we are takers, we probably accept all of them. And so now you have to start dealing with the adapters. That, I think, is the evil I know. And we just have to deal with because of that game. But to be locked into a certain manufacturer's charging capabilities, I mean, I get it as a business model, but I think it's one of those that are very rent-seeking to say, okay, you have to come here, otherwise you collapse, versus one that actually allows more widespread adoption. And this is a matter of philosophy, but my stance is, if you can charge it, go figure out how you can charge it. But what you can do is maybe sell the plug versus trying to lock down the software. And that's where, again, the engineering comes in. I thought you were actually going somewhere different, where we start talking about firmware and making sure that it's actually compatible. What I know some manufacturers do in good faith is to make sure that when you plug in, the vehicle has to authenticate the charger to make sure that it's the right voltage, it's the right amount of current, so that you don't go and short circuit something or mess up the vehicle otherwise. Maybe that's what they're doing it in that faith, and then it comes off as they're trying to be controlling. But who's to say? I don't know the intentions of all these manufacturers everywhere. But that's my response to that. So hopefully that's up. I see Eugene has had his hand up, but hopefully that's helpful. Hello, Eugene.
Hi, Eugene. You can.
Okay, so all right. Laolu, thank you. That's a very fantastic presentation. And I don't have any statistics to back up my claim, but I would even suggest that your adoption estimate is conservative. I mean, because if things continue the way they are going, with fuel prices going up, I assume that will be EVs will be a good alternative. Now, if it's going to help.
Sorry, Eugene, you cut out a bit for me. You said you think the estimate is conservative, and you cut out right
No,
there.
so I said on the one hand, while I have no statistics to back up my claim, I would even be more optimistic than your uptake
adoption forecast.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Considering
like
how it would solve many of our problems, because for me, EV is to vehicles what solar has done to our electricity needs. Now, I just wanted to share very quickly my experience with the BZ4X and why I gave it up, okay? And then see, how it may fit into this conversation. Toyota makes very good cars. So as a car, it's a lovely car to drive, okay? And then you are right that if your commute is a short one, a car with a short range would work. The advertised range for the BZ4S was 220 miles. Okay. Now, in winter, I hardly ever got at 220 miles in winter or outside winter. It was even worse during winter. Okay, so which also speaks to making sure that the car is also engineered for the environment, right? So the highest estimate I would get was 180. And every weekend I was traveling 130 miles each way, which means to and fro 260 miles. So I always had to factor in a charging point. And there were not so many. So for context, I was going from Erie, Pennsylvania to Pittsburgh. Now, ChargePoint has a huge network. You had charge points almost everywhere, but it would take forever. So you can't even count on ChargePoint. Electrify America had better charging stations. So for 40 minutes, I can get a good enough range to move. Okay. One of the ways that Toyota tried to lure people, they had an agreement with EVgo that for a full year you had okay, you can, if you find an EVgo charger, but the only place I only found EVgo charger in one place in Pittsburgh, Target, and you go there, there's a long queue. Okay, so these were several things, and then whenever I had to travel out of state, it was a problem. Okay, apart from mapping how we're also going to map where you find a charging station. So I mentioned range anxiety because many times I was at zero. Okay, so I don't know anybody here. So who's going to check? So eventually I said, well, by August, because I got this November 2024. By August 2025, I said, no, please let me give my heart good rest. Okay, and then so I sold it. So anyway, but I have hopes for it. Here I will have no, I won't have any, I won't think twice about getting
Yes,
an
no winter in Nigeria. I mean,
no
small
winter in
harmattan is not going
Nigeria.
to affect your battery range. And the fundamental dynamics of commuting in Nigeria are different. Like I said, 60% of these are for commercial use. So if you're doing this for a business, I know maybe this is asking a lot, but okay, today we're going around here. So let me get charged, smaller routes, smaller distances, but I know I'm going to make a delivery to that factory. So as we're building this charging infrastructure at a scale, we can think about this for business, for commercial use cases versus the guesswork that you have to do in America is probably the inverse. Probably a good 60 to 80% of vehicles are for personal individual use. So now you have to guess where everybody's going to be at any given point in time. Yes, we have the malls and the airports and the schools, but then you're just really just what we call a spray and pray. I think there's a fundamental difference or opportunity to be different in the approach in Nigeria. Yeah, Omoju.
Yeah, I wanted to say something. So I also have an EV, and I have no problem because it's a Tesla, and Tesla charger is, I mean, I live in California, and the Tesla charger is everywhere. Over here, Tesla is Camry. It's basically everywhere. And then they're starting to roll out their robo taxis. And so for cars like Waymo, who are electric cars too, they are fascinating because they have fleet services. So my old office used to be across the street from one of their fleet services. And their fleet services, so all the Waymos come there, they charge them, they clean them, they go. So I think that kind of approach is almost like a glorified bus garage, but for
it's not
fancy
glorified.
cars.
It's the same.
Yeah, it's basically
it's
like
the future.
Yeah,
it's just
but
the future.
but those humans can take the ride there. They're just maintaining the fleet there and cleaning the fleet and going. So I think for that commercial use case, it's going to be like that, where you just have like fleet services all around the place.
Exactly, and that is the opportunity we're highlighting here. And so what needs to be what needs to be right for those fleet services? I think maintenance, aftermarket support. If we find out that the humidity, the seals are not perfect for humidity CPH, because we know how water vapor droplets can find their way into anything. Then that's where these desiccants come in as, okay, this is at the 3-year check, we start bringing in things like this. Again, I think there's an opportunity to learn from deployment in more advanced economies, but the use case in Nigeria is going to be drastically different. And so this is where this group really comes into its full power to say, what are the things we need to think through for Nigeria and for our economy, for our dynamics, the cost of capital, the know-how on ground, the fact that, again, these depots might not be as advanced and sophisticated as the one you're talking about with Waymo, self-driving cars. That seems far-fetched, but I've spoken to a few people that are looking at it in Nigeria, so it's not necessarily a world away. But great points. The depots then become these live points of interacting with these vehicles, of doing the safety checks, less parts. So we're not changing the belts, we're not changing the oil. We're simply looking at the battery management system. It has enough power, it's discharging and powering the car in the right way. But looking at the tires are something that's wear a little bit more with electric vehicles, but by and large, they're a lot easier to manage. And you can use software to address 80% of the problems that happen with them. Dapo, I saw you, and I think Mr. Durojaye will go with you next.
Okay, yeah, I mean, this question might sound funny. I'm an electronics engineer, and I just wondered, this challenge with travels on battery, is there anything like maybe power bank for EVs? Something probably 50 kg mobile battery that can supplement
100%.
your speed.
100%. I mean, they are businesses. So these are again the business ideas that come out of this with charging. There are services that act like a roadside. You call them, say you're in one of those situations where Eugene found himself, or almost found himself, unfortunately. You call them and they come to you with a truck with a big battery on the back and give you a boost so you can get to your desk. So these are things that the local industry has to start solving for once we have enough adoption. Because at some scale, if we say there are 50,000 EVs on the road in Nigeria, that means at any given point in time, 10, 100, 1,000 of them are having issues. So that creates an aftermarket, a service provision industry where folks can create solutions around. And so that's the value I'm hoping the data that we're developing at Leke Services can bring to the market, the intelligence to say, okay, we can make a bet because the adoption is there. Mr. Durojaye, I don't know if we lost you, and then I see Sam. But I want to also make a time check with Victor. I don't know if we keep going until if questions run out.
We're aiming at 6:30 just to compensate. I think we'll have a lot of questions, but we barely have about 17 minutes left. So let's see.
I think we lost Phillips. I saw SparkCharge. SparkCharge is a US company that does exactly what Dapo brought up. Thanks, for vision.
Maybe someone can go. I don't know if Philip is still on the call.
Yeah, I can proceed, yeah?
Someone, please.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
So, hi, Laolu. Yeah, that was actually a brilliant presentation. And yeah, like for me, I'm all for innovation, especially innovation that focuses on SSA, Sub-Saharan Africa. Now, talking about EVs here, I want to understand how the kind of EVs, we would adopt in Nigeria especially can withstand, our flooded roads, because we know the island is usually like flooded, and we know batteries, electronics, and flood water do not really mix, do not like do well together. That's one. Then on the other hand is, mass production of these EVs. Like I think you mentioned something about CKDs, you understand? And so I just want to understand the kind of technology you want to adopt in mass producing this in Nigeria. And yeah, that's essentially what I want to ask. Yeah.
So let me make sure I'm getting the question right. We're talking about mass producing and what that looks like in reality today in Nigeria, EVs in Nigeria is knockdown kits. So there's a semi-knockdown kits, and then there's the complete knockdown kits, CKD, SKD. Semi-knockdown kits means a lot more work is done before the parts come in. So when we say sub-assemblies, you're talking about the full battery pack as one piece, the full doors, all the doors fully assembled with the glass and everything in there, the chairs, and these are sub-assemblies that just come in now. So what you have to do is effectively bolt it together. So that's the complete knockdown kits, CKD, which most of what is done in Nigeria for EVs. When we say semi-knockdown kits, is a lot more disassembled. And that's what you think like CFAO with their Peugeot assembly, at least they used to have it in the north. I think it's back and active. That's typically a SKD where you can start saying, okay, somebody will bring the material, bring the leather, bring the plastic. We can form it and put in the vehicle, but we'll still get the engine block from Toyota, wherever they are building it. And so there's a lot more opportunity for local design, for customization. That's where we want to go with the local custom content goals. That's where we are with a lot of three-wheelers. There's a lot of three-wheelers, again, the upholstery, the canopy, so the kekes, those things that we're starting to make a lot of them in Nigeria. And so as far as technology goes, it's mostly the assembly line for now. I think there's opportunity to get to the point where we're doing plastic molding for these vehicles, injection, like whatever, for the plastic parts. Again, the upholstery, the cushion, I think we can also already do that. And so as we can show capabilities to produce these parts at a quality that matches the manufacturer's brand. So a BYD will not want to give up a complete knockdown kit if they don't have faith that, okay, for 10,000 units, all 10,000 of the seats and the dashboard and the infotainment, the digital experience is going to match their requirements as if they built out of their factory in China. So that's why a lot of them just opt for SKD instead of CKD. Again, understanding where these opportunities are is maybe we can have another session and say, this is what the assembly looks like. This is what typical SKDs look like. This is what typical CKD looks like. Here are the opportunities to develop local competencies, given what we know we can do in Nigeria. Here's the capital it'll take. Here's what the engineering team needs to look like. Here's the timeline. Here's what the supply chain. I think maybe in subsequent sessions like this, we actually go deep in there and take it from this sort of bird's eye view into, all right, let's talk about this sorts of plastics and injection molding and forms and quality that we need for us to be able to start saying, okay, now we can take full control of this piece of the supply chain locally in Nigeria and Africa. And even now, I'll criticize myself. we're still high level. We're still saying 12 trillion naira and charging and vehicles. We need to get to the point where we're saying this is the code base we need to develop. I mean, I like talking about desiccants as one piece of technical, but we're talking about battery management systems and the different cells and the different separate, like, again, getting into that detail, I think is the goal of African Deep Tech Forum, and hopefully this gets us closer and closer to those actual hands-on engineering, hands-on development science pieces for industry.
Okay. So like you figured out your OEM supply chain.
OEM supply chain, exactly that. I mean, and I think just the assembly line, the manufacturing line, like how do you actually bring all these pieces together to be able to produce at a reliable pace, at a predictable pace? Because that's what any manufacturer that wants to allow you to put their brand on something is going to demand.
Oh, okay, all right. Yeah. Just also to the first thing I spoke about, like, how to make these vehicles withstand flooding. Is there like any strategy or any new innovation around
They
that?
already withstand flooding. There's no flooding risk on these vehicles. Maybe I spoke too much there. There's no flooding risk. There's no flooding risk.
Okay.
No flooding risk.
Hi, Dorje. I think we lost you and why you had your hands up. I don't know if you can ask a question now.
Thank you very much, Leke. I remember we had a prior conversation like 3 weeks ago or so concerning
It's good to see you.
EVs and the development of EVs in Nigeria. I want to address some of the things that you mentioned in terms of how vehicles are developed. To give it some broader context, because when the Japanese designed vehicles after the World War II, they designed vehicles called K cars, KEI cars. And these were the vehicles that the average person would actually purchase and drive. Till today, the average person in Japan is driving a K car. That is their major driver there. However, we are the ones that they are building. The Americans are the ones that are building the Camrys for, and the Prados, and all the other parts of the world. They send all these vehicles to different parts of the world. The Indians developed the tuk-tuk that we know, the keke that we know, and they did it because that was what worked for their economy. That was what worked for them at the time. The Europeans too have a signature smallish type of vehicle that they drive, and then we know the Americans love really big vehicles. And then that's on one end. On the other end, there's the fact that American EVs, sorry, that's my small assistant. So on the other end, American EVs, or rather American vehicles generally, are designed to go from coast to coast, east coast to west coast. That was like the ideal vehicle for the American lifestyle. So if a vehicle could not do that, or is not as big as they want, it would not sell in America. However, in Africa, we are just importing everything, not minding the constraints that went into the development of these vehicles. And if the constraint is that we are paying too much for the basic thing that we need to move 10 kilometers, we are paying $30,000 for a vehicle that you'll be using to move 10 kilometers all around Lagos. It really doesn't make sense. So I think we need to start rethinking what mobility is for us in Africa and start reshaping the kind of vehicles that will actually be manufacturing in Africa for our own problems, for our own Ikeja to BI problem, or from Lagos to Ibadan problem, or from Lagos to Ghana problem. These are far less distances than the East Coast to West Coast of the US. So if we start designing vehicles like that, the vehicles will actually become a lot cheaper without reducing quality. Like the quality will not reduce, but the vehicles will become cheaper because the emission profile is already clear. And it will not look like a vehicle that is designed for poverty. So that's just some insights that I've gained in building a lot of ascendance EV in the last few years of research of trying to get our vehicles to market. So I just wanted to bring in the context of how vehicles are designed and the constraints. Thank you.
Absolutely. I think, Mr. George, you've hit on it in a lot of good points. The vehicles that we use by and large are not designed for us. We are merely using them because they solve a need. People need to move. People and goods need to move. And since we haven't designed for our own needs, we just take what is existing and use it in our circumstance. The challenge, I think, to be able to design something for our own needs, I think, is one, people to actually design it, which is, I hope this group is probably closer to that than the general public. People to design, people to recognize that we don't need this G-Wagon. If we want to build fancy cars, we can build our own fancy cars that meet our own needs, because how many people with G-Wagon actually take it off-road? And that's not even a Nigeria problem. That's just a global. These luxury cars are not hardly ever used to the full capabilities. But when you start talking about the economy, just utility vehicles for going the buses, are they designed for our roads? I mean, half the reason why even the BRTs are not on the road is because the parts, they break because they're not designed to withstand the roads that we have. Should we have bad roads? No, but we do. So therefore, how do we make sure that we have vehicles to withstand our environment? And then once you understand that problem, is to, okay, how do you funnel that information with enough reliable demand? The manufacturers will now be looking at you and saying, okay, we're selling you cars. How do we make sure you buy our cars more? It's by making sure we're solving your problems better. But I feel like that link is broken, either because, and I don't think it's ever going to be purely the manufacturers just out of goodwill saying, let me solve for you better. It has to be a pull from the buyer saying, give us a vehicle that does X, Y, and Z, because the vehicles you're giving us continue to spoil here. I don't want to be paying you for parts when I know if you just improve your engineering, maybe I'll pay a little premium or whatever it is. And don't give me a car with heating. It's not cold. I don't want your heater. And you can start to see that there are different models of vehicles that actually attempt to address these different nuances of we don't need heated seats. I mean, but you buy the fancy car with heated seats. How many times does it drop below 15 degrees where we are? I mean, but then there's also a big part that is not just us. I want us to be clear. There is a government policy piece of it that says this is how we supercharge an industry. This is how we make sure that we're taking a bet. I mean, Nigeria has 200 million people. There's enough demand in Nigeria to bolster any industry. I mean, we're challenging US for consumers, right? The US is barely is maybe 250. So as far as inherent demand, and that's something that China has been able to capture and say, we have 1 billion people in China. That's what India has been able to do. We have 1 billion people. If we invest and maybe make capital cheaper for manufacturing, for automotive, for pharmaceuticals, we have enough people. Everybody in Nigeria needs to go from A to B. Everybody needs to order food. Everybody needs to send things across town. So there's inherent demand for transport. So if we create solutions to drive transport, and the government actually prioritizes and say, okay, we're going to make sure, okay, capital is 30% for the general market. Let's set a nominal interest rate for this sector, because right now, only 10% of people that need transport get access to it. If we make interest 15% by some degree, make sure that there are funds dedicated towards transportation projects, the growth in that sector would outpace anything that you can imagine, because the cost of capital is lower, because we've also put the minds. So it's not just capital, it's also the engineering demand, it's also understanding the problem we're trying to solve. So there are things that we need forums like this to really bring everything together and make it clear, and have people that are dedicated, that are looking bigger than just the next buck in the next quarter cycle or next month cycle. Again, bigger dreams than any one of you and I can take on alone. But I'm also cognizant of the fact that everybody needs to pay rent this month. So we can't all just be living in dreams again. That's why we look to the bigger parts, the leaders, the policy makers to drive some of that. Victor, I'll hand it over to you. I see Shehu here, but you let me know when how many of these are we should
All right, yeah. So we are close to, we're just 2 minutes away from 6:30 Nigerian time, and if you can leave your questions on the chat, and probably um, Laolu can actually give a response to that while we wrap up. I think we actually extended with 30 minutes just to compensate for the delay. Yeah. So Laolu, that was awesome, and it just reminded me about then my school days. We had this Sheleko Marathon competition, and that was why Drew Jerry was actually talking. Yeah, we have the capability of building vehicles from scratch. And this is what I saw in my university. So Shell actually sponsors people to develop vehicles to challenge the energy demand. And yeah, we had people who actually designed engine using cast technology from scratch. We had people who designed vehicle body using fiberglass, carbon fiber, and the rest. And we had people who were skilled in CAD design who could actually fabricate, design those systems from scratch. And I was playing in the vehicle electronics sector, we're developing the electronics for this vehicle, and we ship this car to South Africa to compete with other universities. So my take has always been we can see how possible we can bring innovation to the university. I mean, we have crackheads who are willing to push beyond the limit and see what can be done and solve most of our problems, especially in the mobility sector, and see how we can adopt EVs into our day-to-day operations. Like we don't cover much distance. I think that was one of the most important points that was made. So if we can just take a fraction of the technology that has been done in US and China, I mean, we can actually um, unlock a lot of values in this part of the world. So thank you everyone for this session, and May edition was awesome. And we'll see how we can extend the conversation in our Discord community. And for us, and some of us are not yet on the Discord community. I will try to share the link before we close. So Laolu, any final words from you and what we can actually do to start to build? Yeah, to start the build, because the ADTC Discord community is actually more builder. I'm a builder. I've been into embedded systems for quite about 10 years, and I'm saying what is the next big thing we can actually build. And we have folks like Wilson who is developing, and we have Droja who is building. And yeah, there's a policy aspect and there's the funding aspect, and the most important thing is the engineering, where that's where I'm big on. So thank you once more, Laolu. Final words, and we can call it
No,
a
thank
day.
you. I think you said it well. It's to continue. I mean, hopefully these seeded things, I would love to be a part of, again, going down to what needs to be built that is relevant, that has some real demand. I know between you and Emeka and Fumi, I mean, this organization is wonderful. As we start to identify interest in different groups, I would love to be a part of it. And I think my biggest leverage, even though I'm an engineer, it's been long since I turned a wrench or coded, even though I'd like to get back to doing that. So however I can help, I'd love to be a part. And then more to come from this side. Some of what I put out here, we're going to put out and we're going to publish shortly and continue. So if you know people in the industry, if you're interested in learning more, feel free to reach out to Leke Services. You find me on LinkedIn, or I think we can share some contact info after this. Thank you all so much. And looking forward to keeping this going.
Yeah, thank you, Laolu. Thank you, Samuel. Thank you, Fumi. Thank you, Omoju. It was a great session, and we'll look up to the next month edition. Perhaps we would also consider hosting a specific EV hackathon. I mean, people like Ayomide, you can actually pull in the necessary resources to. I think we should actually look at the Sheleko Marathon. It's a global competition, and we can actually see what university students are actually doing, building EVs from scratch, the urban category, the gasoline, and other categories.
Okay.
Before we jump off, is this the new time? Can we keep this time? Oga Victor.
Yes, we'll try as much as possible to. Yeah, this is actually
Thank
meant to be the
you.
time.
So that I think what you're asking a different question. This is the time for our public open sessions. Yes.
Oh, okay. Yes, I am
Yeah.
asking the question. Okay, fine.